Spotify has 640 million users. It dominates music streaming with a 31% global market share. Artists have streamed over 4 trillion songs on the platform. But here's the thing. For most of its existence, Spotify lost money. Billions of dollars. Because every time you press play, Spotify pays the music industry roughly 70 cents of every dollar it earns. That's not a negotiation. It's a hostage situation. The labels set the price, and Spotify has to pay it. This is the story of the most popular music company in the world, and why it can barely afford to exist. In 2006, a Swedish entrepreneur named Daniel Ek had a problem he wanted to solve. Music piracy was destroying the recording industry. Napster had been shut down, but LimeWire, BitTorrent, and dozens of other platforms had taken its place. The music industry's revenue had fallen from $23 billion in 1999 to $15 billion in 2006 and was still dropping. CD sales were in free fall. Apple's iTunes was selling individual songs for 99 cents, but piracy was free and free was winning. Ek's insight was simple. You can't beat free with expensive. You have to beat free with convenient. If you could give people instant access to virtually every song ever recorded, legally on demand with no downloads, and charge either nothing with ads or a small monthly fee, most people would choose that over the hassle of pirating music from sketchy websites. Spotify launched in Sweden in 2008 and expanded across Europe before reaching the US in 2011. The freemium model, free with ads, $9.99 per month without, was a hit with consumers. Getting the music on the platform, however, required the most painful negotiations in tech history. The music industry is controlled by 3 companies: Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Music Group. Together, they control roughly 65 to 70% of all recorded music. If Spotify wanted to offer a comprehensive music library, it needed deals with all 3, and the labels knew it. The resulting licensing agreements gave the labels roughly 70% of Spotify's revenue. Not profit, revenue. For every dollar Spotify brings in from subscriptions and advertising, approximately 70 cents goes to rights holders, labels, publishers, and distributors. Spotify keeps the remaining 30 cents to cover everything else: engineering, servers, marketing, sales, corporate overhead, and, theoretically, profit. To put this in perspective, when you pay $11.99 per month for Spotify Premium, about $8.40 goes to the music industry. Spotify gets $3.59. Out of that $3.59, Spotify needs to pay for the engineers who build the app, the servers that stream the music, the sales team, customer support, marketing, and the executives who run the company. For years, $3.59 per user per month simply wasn't enough. Now, what does an individual stream actually pay? This is where the math gets depressing, especially for artists. Spotify uses a pro rata payment model. All the money from subscriptions and ads goes into a giant pool. That pool is divided among all the songs streamed that month, proportional to their share of total streams. The average per stream payout? Approximately $0.003 to $0.005. That's 1/3 to 1/2 of a penny. To earn minimum wage from streaming alone, an artist would need roughly 400,000 streams per month. To earn a median U.S. salary of $60,000, they'd need about 15 million streams per year. The top 1% of artists on Spotify receive the vast majority of streams and money. The bottom 90% of artists on the platform earn less than $1,000 per year from streaming. But here's the part most people get wrong. Spotify doesn't set the per stream rate. The labels do, through the 70% revenue share. And importantly, most of that 70% doesn't go to artists. It goes to the labels. A typical record deal gives the artist 15 to 25% of the label streaming income. So from that $0.004 per stream, The artist might see $0.0006 to $0.001. The labels pocket the rest. This is Spotify's structural problem. They're trapped between consumers who won't pay much more than $10 to $12 per month and labels that demand 70% of everything. Spotify can't raise prices aggressively because consumers will switch to Apple Music, YouTube Music, or Amazon Music, all of which are subsidized by parent companies with much deeper pockets. Apple can afford to run Apple Music at a loss because it sells iPhones. Amazon can subsidize Amazon Music because it sells Prime memberships. Spotify's music service is the entire business. For 15 years, Spotify operated at a loss. From its founding in 2006 through 2023, Spotify accumulated over €3 billion in net losses. The company finally turned its first meaningful annual profit in 2024, and it did so not by solving the music economics, but by diversifying away from music. Podcasts. In 2019, Spotify spent over $1 billion acquiring podcast companies and signing exclusive podcast deals, including $200 million for Joe Rogan's show. The thesis was simple. Podcasts don't have the same licensing structure as music. When Spotify hosts a podcast, they own or license the content directly and keep the advertising revenue. No 70% revenue share to labels. Podcast ads generate much higher margins than music streaming. The results were mixed at first. Spotify overpaid for some deals and pulled back on exclusive contracts. But the podcast bet is directionally right. Spotify now hosts over 6 million podcasts and is the largest podcast platform in the world, surpassing Apple Podcasts. Podcast advertising revenue is growing at 20% plus annually, and the margins are dramatically better than music. Spotify also introduced audiobooks in 2023, offering premium subscribers 15 hours of free audiobook listening per month. Like podcasts, audiobooks carry different economics than music and give Spotify another revenue stream outside the label system. Then there are the recent price increases. In 2023 and 2024, Spotify raised premium prices in multiple markets, from $9.99 to $11.99 in the US. The price increase flowed almost entirely to the bottom line because the label deals are structured as a percentage of revenue. So, as revenue goes up, the labels get more too, but Spotify's absolute dollar margin per user increases. The 2024 price increase alone is estimated to generate an additional $1 to $2 billion in annual revenue. Combined with cost-cutting, Spotify laid off roughly 2,000 employees, 23% of its workforce, in late 2023. The company reached profitability. Q4 2024 was the company's best quarter ever. 263 million premium subscribers, a record €477 million in operating profit. But the fundamental tension remains. Spotify is the product that saved the music industry from piracy. Global recorded music revenue is now back above $28 billion, up from $14 billion at its trough, and yet the company that saved the industry struggles to profit from it. The labels that nearly went bankrupt from piracy now extract 70% of Spotify's revenue and earn record profits. Universal Music Group alone made $12 billion in revenue in 2023. What do we learn from Spotify's paradox? Lesson 1. Saving an industry doesn't mean you'll profit from it. Spotify solved music piracy and rebuilt the recording industry's revenue. But because the labels control the content and set the terms, most of the value Spotify created was captured by its suppliers, not by Spotify itself. If your business depends on a supplier that controls 70% of your economics, you're building someone else's empire. Lesson 2. Diversification is survival. Spotify's path to profitability wasn't better music economics. It was podcasts, audiobooks, and new revenue streams where labels don't take 70%. Any business stuck in a structurally disadvantaged position should be looking for adjacent opportunities where the economics actually work. Lesson 3. Platform power isn't permanent. Having 640 million users sounds like an unassailable moat. But when Apple, Amazon, and Google can subsidize competing products with other business lines, user count alone doesn't guarantee survival. The strongest position in any market is the one where your core business is self-sustaining, not dependent on the tolerance of bigger players. Every time you stream a song, Spotify pays the music industry 70 cents on the dollar and tries to run an entire tech company on the remaining 30. The fact that they've survived and finally profited is more impressive than most people realize. If you want more stories about the real economics behind the companies you use every day, subscribe. See you in the next one.